4 slinking figures approached the throne of shadow and bowed deeply, even as they made a show of obedience to the lord of this cursed chamber. Their eyes flicked towards one another, narrowing with hatred and suspicion. Yellow fangs were bared, and hackles rose. These were the Death Masters of the clans Eshin, masters of all murder, misdirection, and mayhem. There was no being in the realms they trusted less than one of their own kind, but when the shadows spoke, their enmity was temporarily suppressed, replaced with fearful trepidation. "You are here because I have need of a swift and silent blade," said the being on the throne. "A killer that can breach any fortress, no matter the arcane wards or unsleeping sentinels that protect it." Its voice was the sound of swords scraping upon bone, a promise of death and torment that echoed terribly in the mind. So thick were the shadows obscuring the speaker that the Skaven could only see the vague outline of its hulking, winged body. In the center of that black mass were 2 terrible eyes, twin shards of ice, pitiless and ancient. "Present your offerings," it said, with a wave of a clawed hand that could tear off any of their skulls with a single wrenching motion. "Prove your skill. For the vermin that impresses me most, the rewards shall be more than you can imagine." Mikerick of Clan Stabstrick came forward first, clutching a sack of white cloth stained red with blood. His hair had all been burnt away long ago by a Dwarden flame-spitter, giving him the look of some oversized broodling. As he approached the throne, Mikerick winced and scratched at his skinny ribs. Being so near to the Shadow Lord seemed to have entirely turned his stomach.
"Great Master, no trophy is greater better than mine,"
the Stabstrick Deathmaster hissed, upending his sack. Out tumbled 3 severed heads. Each was noble and beautiful of aspect, each face serene despite the ragged red stump of the neck beneath.
"The Light Lords of Elune," said
Mikerick.
"These pointy-eared brothers thought that they were safe hidden in their palace of prisms, but nowhere is safe from Clan Skipstrick. Mikerick climbed their blinding walls, slipped quick into their meditation chambers, and cut their throats before they even opened their eyes."
The creature to Mikerick's left snorted. This rat-beast was old and grizzled, and atop its snout was strapped a pair of oversized brass-looking goggles.
"Did elf things,"
he scoffed.
"Boring. Deathmaster Kerr has killed 1,000 in his time. Any blind whelp could bring the Shadow Lord such a gift. Mine is greater by far."
With a flourish, Kerr revealed from his robes a glittering set of heavy keys, 1 bronze, 1 silver, and the largest wrought of pure gold, its notches shaped to resemble the teeth of a fire drake.
"The forged keys of Drazim-Na,"
snickered Deathmaster Kerr.
"Kerr killed the priests and took them for himself. Without their foolish priests to tend it, the hearth of the great magma hold was soon snuffed out, and now the beardlings cower shiver in their hole."
Kerr's laughter turned to a hacking rasp, and was soon cut off by the 3rd Skaven figure, who elbowed his rival aside.
"Biology's gifts,"
he said, waving a dismissive claw.
"Nothing compared to what Norspot has brought. He is the greatest Deathmaster of all.
Norspot snapped his claws, and two ragged ratlins came scuttling from the darkness, carrying between them what appeared to be a tall, ornate mirror, its surface glowing with soft cerulean light. The room grew ice-cold, and rime frost crackled across the floor.
Norspot has travelled to the Mirrored City,
he said, his trembling voice nonetheless filled with smug bravado.
Has returned with his fairy neck. He brings you this mighty one, as proof certain, and he is the best.
The being on the throne leant forward. Looking closer, one could see the mirror did not reflect the darkness of the chamber, but instead showed a ghostly city of impossible dimensions, a metropolis of splintered glass and looming, crooked spires. There were figures within, ghostly beings with anguished faces that pressed their fleshless hands against the glass.
Impressive,
the being muttered.
The necromancer's cursed prison is not easily breached, and less easily escaped.
Norspot half grinned, half winced, staring down at his scarred paw. He saw a purplish discoloration spreading painfully across his forelimb.
And what of you, Crixit of Clan Nictus?
said the Shadow Lord.
What trophy do you bring me?
All eyes fell upon the last of the Deathmasters, who crouched some distance from his kin, using his knife-tail to sharpen his foreclaws.
Crixit brings no gift,
Crixit said. Barked Mickerit with an accompanying acidic belch.
Pathetic fool,
sneered Norspot, clawing furiously at his itching arm. Deathmaster Kerr bared his teeth contemptuously and hacked up a slimy wad of fur. Seated on its throne, the hidden master's glowing eyes narrowed to angry slits. The shadows writhed and shifted, like animals taking flight in expectation of imminent violence. Each of the Deathmasters took a discreet step backwards, eagerly anticipating their peers' gruesome death.
It is not wise to waste my time,
the Shadow Lord growled. Deathmaster Crixit spread his arms wide and bowed deeply.
Mighty powerful one, Crixit needs no trophy to prove his skill. It will be obvious any moment now when he slays these scab-furred fools.
There was a chorus of hissing and cursing from the other Deathmasters, who were suddenly brandishing a bewildering array of shurikens, daggers, punch-blades, and other assorted murderous implements. Crixit gazed at them, his expression more curious than afraid.
Any moment,
he repeated.
Let us peel the fur from this Nictus wretch,
snarled Kerr. The throned master waved a hand to signal its accord, and the three assassins burst into motion, leaping at their prey in a blur of blades and snapping fangs. Kerr's toxin-dripping dagger was no more than the width of a boilfly's wing from Crixit's beady eyeball when his motion ceased entirely, his muscles locking rigid. The stricken Skaven's eyes flicked across to Mickerit, who was frozen in the act of hurling a clawful of shuriken, his hairless body trembling, blood streaming from his snout and his fearful eyes. Norspot was somehow staggering on, despite obviously suffering the same gruesome affliction, still clutching his twin short swords, yet convulsing so fiercely that Kerr heard the familiar sound of bones splintering. Kerr himself began to shake uncontrollably, racked by waves of indescribable agony that twisted his skeleton, turned his muscles inside out. His spine bent backwards, and he felt the horrifying sensation of his ribs forcing their way out through his narrow chest.
Now,
said Crixit, with a satisfied nod. The 3 Deathmasters exploded in a shower of gore and shattered bone. Crixit was right in the midst of the deluge of viscera, and he emerged squinting through a splatter of skaven flesh that covered him from snout to hind claw. He wiped the back of a paw across his eyes and bent to retrieve a pair of brass goggles with smashed lenses, all that remained of the unfortunate Deathmaster Kerr.
"Ixvirian livid spore,"
said Crixit by way of explanation.
"All it takes is a single sniff, and it brews inside your belly until it bursts. Crixit poisoned them days ago, but the timing can be imprecise. Here is proof that Crixit is the deadliest master murderer of all."
He held out the bloody pair of looking-glasses. The figure on the throne was silent for a long moment. Then Crixit saw the glint of oversized fangs, bared in a cruel smile. "You will do, vermin," the hidden being said. "You will do very well."
"What is the kill contract, O Master?"
said Crixit. "To destroy the impossible," said the winged monstrosity, rising from its shadowy throne, "and in doing so, bring about the end of the eternal."